ask you, is the Sabbath going to be a big issue at the end of time? It is going to be the issue like it was in the days of Christ. You say, but it's not the same. It's similar, but not the same. Let me ask you, is Sunday a day of rest that was created by man? Is it a human day of rest? Yes, because it was not made by God. Was the day that the Pharisees created as the Sabbath their day of rest created by man? Yes. Was it a sign of their authority? Yes. Is Sunday the sign of authority of the ones who created Sunday as a day of authority? Absolutely. It's a day of rest that is created by man. The only difference is that in the days of Christ, the Sabbath was kept in the wrong way. At the end of time, it will be the wrong day. But it will still involve the Sabbath, the rest day of Jesus Christ. Just as a few months before the death of Christ, there was a meeting of the Sanhedrin. There will be a meeting in the Christian world against God's law-keeping people. There's this remarkable statement in Great Controversy, pages 615 and 616, where Ellen White refers to the words of Caiaphas that we read before. Let me read you that statement. It will be urged that the few who stand in opposition to an institution of the church, this is Sunday, and a law of the state, see, an institution of the church and a law of the state ought not to be tolerated. Listen carefully now, that it is better for them to suffer than for whole nations to be thrown into confusion and lawlessness. Remember what the argument of Caiaphas was? Necessary for this man to die so that the nation will not fall apart and perish? She continues saying, the same argument, listen carefully, the same argument many centuries ago was brought against Christ by the rulers of the people. It is expedient for us, said the wily Caiaphas, that one man should die for the people and that the whole nation perish not. This argument will appear conclusive, and a decree will finally be issued against those who hallow the Sabbath of the fourth commandment, denouncing them as deserving of the severest punishment and giving the people liberty after a certain time to put them to death. You say that could never happen. Did it happen in the days of Christ with God's supposed church giving the death decree against Christ? What makes you think that it can't happen again? And then she explains Romanism in the old world and apostate Protestantism in the new. And folks, they're coming together. And it's not the Catholics that are reaching over to the Protestants. It's the Protestants that are reaching over to Roman Catholicism. Great leaders of the Protestant world are going over there. And they're speaking positively. All these television evangelists. We see the signs being fulfilled right before our eyes. She says Romanism in the old world and apostate Protestantism in the new will pursue a similar course, listen carefully now, towards those who honor all the divine precepts. So what is the contrast? Against law keepers versus what? Versus law breakers. But listen carefully now. In these United States of America, the Constitution guarantees a separation of church and state. It's in the First Amendment to the Constitution. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion. Congress can't make any law that establishes religious observances, nor prohibiting the free exercise thereof. Congress cannot make a law forbidding people from practicing their religion. It cannot make religious observances mandatory, and it cannot forbid people from practicing their religion. In other words, there is a separation between the church and the state. In these last days, the church knows that they don't have authority to execute the death penalty, which eventually will be the final resort against God's law-keeping people. The church cannot execute the death penalty. So whose help will they need? They will need the help of the civil power. Let me read a statement from Ellen White. She says, the clergy will put forth almost superhuman efforts to shut away the light, lest it should shine upon their flocks. By every means at their command, they will endeavor to suppress the discussion of these vital questions. And now comes the key portion. The church appeals to the strong arm of civil power. Did that happen in the days of Christ? Yes. The church appeals to the strong arm of civil power, and in this work, papists and Protestants unite. As the movement for Sunday enforcement becomes more bold and decided, listen carefully again, the law will be invoked against commandment keepers. Is that why the law was invoked against Christ? Absolutely. But as Jesus refused to take over the reins of the civil government, and he said, my kingdom is not of this world, God's people will remain aloof from using the state on the part of the church to accomplish its purposes. And you know what's going to happen is that God's people are going to be accused of sedition against the government. When those who really want to take over the government to accomplish their purposes are the union of Catholicism and Protestantism. Are you seeing the parallel with the days of Christ? Christ was accused. Oh yeah, he's really a danger to Caesar's throne. And yet they're using Caesar to condemn him. On the other hand, Jesus said, no. The authority of Caesar anyway. Jesus is saying, no, my kingdom is not of this world. God's people will be accused of disaffection towards the government, just like Jesus was accused.